Yes, sir. I think we can begin. Air Marshal Bhosle sir has joined us. So, with your permission, Lieutenant General Khandar Saab.
Yeah,
Thank you.
go ahead, Manish.
Yes, thank you, sir. Good evening, namaskar. A very warm welcome to all of you joining us today evening. I'm Dr. Manish Dabhade, founder of the Indian Futures. I take this opportunity to welcome you all today on behalf of the Indian Futures. I cannot but also begin by hoping that you and your loved ones are safe and healthy. Uh, we are extremely proud at the Indian Futures to have hosted since last couple of years some of India's and world's finest minds from the world of government, politics, academia, diplomacy, and culture. Let me, cut it short. And since today is really going to be a very important discussion, just let me remind you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube at the rate Indian Futures. And please feel free to share today's program with hashtag TIF Agnipath. Thanks again to all who have joined us here on Zoom and others on our YouTube channel where we are already live streaming this program. You would all, of course, know why we have assembled here today. So this is regarding the Agnipath scheme that was launched on 14th of June. In fact, a very historic, transformative idea, an idea, in fact, many would say whose time has come. Raksha Mantri, Honorable Shri Rajnath Singh, in fact, had said at the launch that the Agnipath scheme, approved by the Cabinet Committee of Security, chaired by Prime Minister Modi, in fact, he called it a truly transformative reform which will enhance the combat potential of the armed forces with, very importantly, he said, a younger profile and technological adept soldiers. He further added the infusion of disciplined, motivated, and skilled Agniveers uh, back into the society after military service of 4 years would be a great asset for the nation. And in fact, he said this was really a win win proposition for India. Taking you back a bit earlier, in fact, especially since 2014, there has been a generally a transformational reform agenda for India, but also very importantly for the armed forces. I mean, this whole CDS, the focus on indigenization, are just a few examples I'm mentioning here. One of the ideas of in fact, one of the very significant ideas is that the average age of the Indian Army, honestly, I didn't know that, was at 32. And in fact, with this, the Agnipath scheme over the years, it would come down to 26. So we would really have an army, an armed force, which would be really lean, mean, and of course, young. In fact, I would strongly recommend you to also look at General VP Malik, who gave the interview on 14th itself, where he, in fact, welcoming the Agnipath scheme, called it a pragmatic step, good for the armed forces. And in fact, he made a very pertinent point, which I need to flag out here, that Agnipath takes into account, and these are his words, that Agnipath takes into account current as well as futuristic socio-economic and technological environment for future conflicts we may have to fight. Well, what is happening is, despite a general sign of welcome, you also see visuals coming from different parts of the country. Again, what exactly is being motivated? I think there are some genuine apprehensions, there are genuine concerns, and in fact, the whole idea about having a conversation today is exactly to in fact really clear the fog, which it seems to be at times getting dense day after day. And we are very fortunate, in fact, to have assembled really a star-studded evening to literally clear this fog for all of us. And in fact, we have with us Lieutenant General Khandari Saab, Vinod Khandari sir. In fact, he has in fact been a mentor of sorts. He, along with Air Marshal Ajit Bhosle, Khandari Saab doesn't need any introduction, but He retired as a lieutenant general from the Indian Army. Was an advisor is an advisor, in fact, currently an advisor with the Defense Ministry, Government of India, and very importantly held very important sensitive assignments in the armed forces. But very importantly, the former military advisor to the National Security Council Secretariat. Thank you again, sir. It's truly an honor to have you with us. And really feel very blessed that you have kindly agreed to take time out of your extremely busy schedule, knowing what is happening with this scheme. We also have with us again Air Marshal Ajit Bhosle, another mentor of us at the Indian Futures. He's a veteran in the armed forces, and very importantly, in fact, just wrapped up his very important, very significant constitutional term as a member of the UPSC this Feb. Thank you so much again, sir, for joining us. We are equally and deeply honored to have, in fact, for the first time, Major General Dev Chaturvedi sir with us, who retired as, in fact, the former ADG of the Territorial Army and commander of the GOC 25 Infantry Division. Uh, each of these, in fact, bring solid years of not just military ideas, but also military experience, military expertise. And I think each of them would really, honestly, I'm going to personally learn because there is so much commentary coming out, literally, I mean, second after second in social media, in print. You see, I mean, I personally, in fact, have looked into many interviews looking for what, since we are planning to do this program today. So I really am looking forward to a learning experience from each of these. So thank you all for joining us. And with this, I now turn over to Lieutenant General Khandare to address us. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Manish, for this generous introduction, and Jai Hind to all of you. Let me start by saying that the way things are visible on the national TV screen, it is very disturbing to see the kind of violence and to see the kind of indiscipline that is prevalent on the streets. And what pains us most is the kind of arson and the kind of damage to national property. When I'm saying national property, it is public as well as private. When it is public property which is being damaged, it is my income tax paid money, legitimate income tax paid by you all. And I do not think we have outsourced this kind of uh, willingness to others to damage the national property. It is something which I put under criminal activity, and it is for the nation, the law enforcement agencies, to ensure that this comes to a stop immediately. And as regards private property, imagine the kind of people who have bought their vehicles on EMI and their property is put to flames. What are we trying to do? On one hand, we want to be as modern as Japan, and you compare the discipline of that part of the world with ours. So I strongly want to appeal to the people that we have to put a stop to this kind of senseless violence. The second issue, I do not want to get into the nitty-gritties of the violence, where it happened, what happened. I want to actually highlight the fact that what is the violence about? The first thing is they wanted to demand a kind of inclusion of the youth who were going to be left out because of the COVID period, which the government immediately agreed to. So that part having agreed to, then what is the violence about? To my mind, is it because 75% of the people are going to go out? So that means the people on the streets are very sure that they are in that 75% who are going to go. So the 25% people who are presently preparing themselves by physically conditioning themselves, whether in stadiums, whether in grounds, whether in the fields, I think that is the lot that we are looking at. And I'm very sure that the three services are not looking at these people who are on the streets to join the armed forces. Because if this is the kind of thinking, the attitude, I do not think we can trust these people to be going onto the northern borders or in the insurgency infested area, because I think instead of solving a problem, we will end up with more problems. So that is as regards the present condition is concerned. Let me move on from here. What exactly is Agniveer? It's a policy. Policy formulation is something which we all have to get used to, that policy, once it has outlived its utility, seeing the conditions today, there will be a new policy which has to come up, or there will have to be policy adjustments which have to be made. So a policy is being made in the security sector as well as in the development sector. In development sector, policy can be kept transparent. In the security sector, if we are wanting the same standards of transparency, I don't think the adversaries have to fight us. I think we are exposing ourselves on the grounds of transparency. Then are we a land of Kautilya, or are we somebody else who have not imbibed the strategic culture and the strategic lessons which Kautilya left for us? So there has to be an understanding of strategic culture. There has to be an understanding of transparency in which field, and there has to be a very clear behavioral pattern where a country develops and keeps itself secure. The sustainable development goals are in the development sector, but keeping the country secure internally and externally is in the security sector. So there can be no comparison between these two. By doing what the youth are doing, whether guided, misguided, that we will see a little later, it is being ensured that negative attention is being provided to India, which essentially means the kind of investments which come will reduce, which also means that your target of becoming a 5 trillion economy is going to be hampered. Now, the ones who are targeting this policy, how much do they know? Or these are perceptions, or these are emotions? This particular study has been on for over 2 years. It has been done by professionals in uniform who have fought wars. They have first-hand experience of what kind of terrain difficulties are there. General Chaturvedi is here, who commanded the most challenging division, that is the 25 Infantry Division. I think if I'm not wrong, Dev, it is about 210 kilometers frontage.
You're right,
over
sir.
500 posts. And these posts are on an eyeball to eyeball situation. We have served in Ladakh, we have served on the glacier, we have served in North Sikkim, we've served in Northeast India, we've served in the hinterland. It is very easy for people to say, we can modernize and develop our habitat to make it comfortable. That's not a place where we go to live. We go there to fight. We go there to protect each and every inch of this national sovereignty. People have to go across and teach a lesson. This generation has seen what is surgical strike. During surgical strike, you cannot be carrying a person who is unable to carry himself. In fact, you have to be able to carry your colleague, your comrade. One golden principle is you will never leave a weapon behind, you will never leave your companion behind. So in addition to your battle loads, you have to carry your own comrade who may be injured. So the youthful profile is something where there is no compromise. Like I initially said, on discipline there is no compromise. On youthful profile there is no compromise. Let me take you back to 1947, 48. We just became independent and we had to fight a war. We had to do with whatever we inherited. That was definitely may not have been the best, but they made us proud because they protected our sovereignty. We went into 62 and you know the result. We went into 65, we did something better. We went into 71, we did the best. We came into 1999, we again did well. But the lessons of the Kargil Review Committee and the group of ministers very clearly said that Mr. K. Subramaniam, the most respected strategic analyst, he said, make your army youthful. In that, he recommended a number of things, and a group of ministers was formed to look at how to make the armed forces youthful. We have not been able to do it. It has been taking us time to come and implement it. Now that a bold decision has been taken, and this kind of behavior will ensure that the subsequent decision makers do not take bold decisions. This is not a good lesson to follow. How is it that we moved away from being a youthful army? Till 1967, the color service or the compulsory service for a person to serve once he enrolled was 7 years. And that meant that these soldiers, when they went home, they did not get a pension. And today we are talking of 4 years. Those people with 7 years, you were not entitled to pension because pension was at the minimum service of 15 years. Somewhere down the line in 1976, we increased, or rather till 67, it was 7 years. In 67, we increased it from 7 to 10 years. Even then, there was no pension. Thereafter, in 1976, we increased it from 10 years to 17 years. And that is the time bulk of the army started getting pension in the soldiers' rank. And the pension bill and the salary bill kept mounting. The impact was not felt then, it is being felt now. It always happens when you go for a kind of a decision which at that time may have been more welfare oriented. But in the long run, the subsequent generations are now facing the crunch where money is not available for modernizing. So the first reply somebody will say, let the government pay for the increased pay and pension bill. Yes, obviously, the government has to pay for it. Now we choose, do we develop or do we spend money here? Or we do both. So when we do both, it is for the rest of the nation also to contribute, at the same time for the armed forces also to reduce whatever expenditures we can. So youthful profile and pension, these two things I said. To the listeners, I want to tell you that there are some excellent research work papers by one Mr. Lakshman Behra. Please go on internet, you will find them and you will find how much data supports the decision that has been taken. So from where I came to the level of youthful profile undoubtedly is also required in other security forces, that is the Central Armed Police Forces, the state police forces also, but they have different forms of performance parameters. So that is one reason why the Kargil Review Committee had said that there should be lateral induction, but it did not happen. It has still not happened. There are vacancies which have been stipulated, which have not been filled. Now, this is something which has to be done introspectively by the armed forces also, because in the state services, there are vacancies which have been kept and which go a-begging. The kind of these vacancies which we fill are in single digits. There can be two reasons attributed to it. When our people leave, they do not meet the qualification requirement or they do not meet the kind of cutoff percentages in those examinations, even though they are lowered. But means we as an organization have to prepare our people when they leave. Secondly, even the age part is in some of the states. In fact, this is again an eye-opener. You may like to go and see the different state police services. Their age bracket from state to state varies. So if there are different policies for different states, then there has to be some rethink on that also. And now that the states are coming forward and saying that they will pay attention to this, and the central government, I'm sure, is looking at how to smoothen out the absorption. So this lot of 75% which is going to leave also has to understand that they better be meritorious to be absorbed in the second innings. How do we look at this 46,000 that we have said? 46,000 are the people who are retiring. So automatically we have to bring in 46,000. Now in that we have said that about 12 to 13,000 people will stay permanently and about 32 to 33,000 people will go out. Now if you look at 28 states, 8 union territories, 6 central armed police forces, the various other ministries, if a whole of nation approach is looked at, I'm sure we are going through that exercise of how this absorption pattern happens. But again, here is the moot point. Are we into a comfort zone of having a permanent job, pension? India is well described as a service sector. India is not a production economy the way China is. Israel is an excellent example of service and production combined. The youngsters who perform service, national service for 3 years for males and 2 years for females, when they get out, they get into startup mode. Because they have been the practitioners, they know exactly what is required by the armed forces, and they don't have to be told the way we have to tell our scientists or we have to tell our startups, like, look, you prepare this. So you are explaining to a person about an equipment which he has never even imagined. Now, if these 33,000 people leave with about 12 lakhs under their belt and they try to go in for an entrepreneurial second innings, I think this is good for the nation also. So while I have been talking about only the jobs, I want to say that the nation has to transform itself from a service sector dominated economy to a healthy balance between service sector as well as a production sector. Today, we are extremely good at software, but we are extremely bad at hardware. And then we are looking towards China for hardware. And then we say that there are backdoors into that. So these are certain issues where we have to look at it from the national viewpoint. One more point which I forgot to give out is how did this pension bill increase? You take out the data, the longevity, the life expectancy in 1951 was just about 40 years for males and 45 or so for females. Now today it stands at 71 years across the board, males and females. A person comes into the armed forces at the age of 17 actually, but let's round it off to 20. He serves for 20 years, goes home at the age of 40. He lives for 70 years. So he served for 20 years and he's getting pension for 30 years. His wife lives for another 10 years. Yes, the nation has to look after them, but the problem cannot be wished away. And this is one issue which nobody is talking about. The world over, most of the armies have already gone in for short tenures in the armed forces. There are over 20 countries where there is conscription. We do not need it. We have enough people in a queue. So if we have people in a queue, why shouldn't I take the best? In any case, I'm taking these people for the national service. It's not for anybody's own personal domain. So if there is a long queue, then there is a requirement that we take them with the best possible capabilities in terms of skills, attitudes, aptitudes. So if these three things are taken, and again, we look at the character of a person, the commitment and caliber, I think we will have a very good armed force waiting for us around the corner. To round it off, because of the time constraint, Manish, I want to tell you, most of the people who have been speaking have not experienced what goes through the mind of a person when he's in this Agniveer format. Agniveer format is not new. In the officer cadre, we have always had short service entries. I am a living example of a short service officer. When I joined in October 78, I knew I was going to be here for 5 years only. We were 300 of us. 270 passed out because the 30 who did not pass out either left service for whatever reason, or may have passed away, or were not found fit to pass out with us. So there are meritorious parameters based on which you become an officer. A short service officer also has stringent parameters. We train for 9 months and we compete with people who've been there in uniform for 4 years or for 18 months. So you have to perform. And if you don't perform, then you perish. Having done that, after 5 years, what happened to these 270? Only 90 got retained. What is the percentage from 300? Please calculate. And what happens after those 90 have been retained? They face the first selection board of lieutenant colonel, and out of those 90, 30 get knocked out. We go ahead with 60 for the next promotion board because this is a pyramidal structure amongst the officers also. And what happens next? Out of these 60, 40 get knocked out. What happens to those 20? We continue to toil, we continue to serve the nation with grit and determination. And finally, out of those 20 also, I am the only lieutenant general who's come up to this rank. So it's not something that people are imagining that this is a job and I'm coming here for a khushi time and I will get permanent employment and I will get pension, and thereafter it is for the nation to look after me. Before I close, let me remind you, in 2019, late General Rawat, our CDS, we are very proud of him. He said, आर्म्ड फोर्सेस में नौकरी नौकरी नहीं है, देशभक्ति है. जिसको नौकरी चाहिए वो दूसरे डिपार्टमेंट्स में जाइए, जिसको देश सेवा करना है वो यहाँ आइए और आर्म्ड फोर्सेस के इथोस, ट्रेडिशंस और वर्क कल्चर के हिसाब से अपने आप को ढाल लीजिए. This is what I wanted to tell you, and subsequently in the question answer session I can amplify further. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir. As always, extremely clear. And this is the plain speaking, I think, which we need to understand on the basis of facts, on the basis of your own personal experiences. I think that's so important, and I think you were very right that one of the very important drivers of this Agnipath scheme is in fact the current nature of war fighting, and we have moved beyond looking at the historical arc, where we are, what sort of capabilities we require, and exactly the youthful profile. I think it's very important that we put in a handle on that. So I think that that's a very important point, which Khandare sir has mentioned. Also, people are forgetting the Kargil Review Committee report by none other than headed by K. Subramaniam. Very important suggestions, very important policy recommendations were given, which have also shaped this entire exercise. And again, apprehensions. I mean, so many apprehensions, so many misperceptions. This whole question about absorption. This is not something new, and that is what, in fact, sir pointed out, that there is a graded process, of selection of, and again choosing the best. That is the whole approach which should be, which is in fact driving the Indian Armed Forces. So I think this whole question of perform or perish, this is where that basic ethos of, and that's exactly what the armed forces are known for, pure utter professionalism. So I think these are very important points which Khandari sir has flagged out for us on the Agnipath scheme. Thank you so much, sir. With this, I now invite Air Marshal Ajit Bhosle sir to address us. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Professor Manish. I hope I am audible.
Yes, sir.
All right. After a very detailed overview by Lieutenant General Vinod Khandare on the aspects of youthful profile, pension, compulsions that we have, and also the worrisome violence that is going on. I will like to, take off from there in a manner that, being an optimistic, I feel this violence will subside sooner than later when better sense will prevail. And it will be only those youths that we are wanting to join. Some sense will come in the mind and they will move away from those elements who are misguiding them. The youth is smart, they can decipher, they can discern. Agnipath scheme is here to stay, and we are closing on to the dates of recruitment, further training, and it's a rath, it's a chariot which is unstoppable, and that is understood. I would also like to actually take off from the points which with General Vinod Khandare concluded that we need to have people who measure up on the yardsticks of skills, aptitude, attitude, and they have character and caliber that is required to take the armed forces and the nation forward. I think that we are the armed forces as such, and of course, being an Air Force officer, I will be relating this aspect to the Air Force per se. But this is Agnipath is a revolution in the military affairs, in the HR department. I think it's a very unique and novel idea, and I really want to congratulate those who thought about it. Any new change will be questioned. It will be questioned because there will be a lot of doubts which need clarification, which over a period of time in a democratic society of ours has gone through the entire mill. The policy is here. Now we have to look at it, how best we can implement it. I feel that Agnipath scheme is both a challenge and opportunity for the armed forces, for the Air Force. And we have to face up these challenges and embrace the opportunity to build a future ready armed forces or Indian Air Force. It's a golden opportunity for the youth also to experience the military life for 4 years and transport them into different beings altogether. All of us have been saying, and I'm not talking about those who are in uniform, but those are not in uniform, that we need military training for all Indians. And here is the opportunity. Why are we shunning away? That is the question. Now, if you look at the Indian Air Force present scheme of things, of recruiting at the airman level, and Agnipath, which stands out as a very sterling and novel scheme, these days, at the present scheme before Agnipath, is that we get in the airmen who are there for a permanent sort of commitment, and they are bound to be serving for 15 years before they get their pension. Now, the numbers that come in are for good. And once they are inside, we can't send them away. Not that we want to send them away, but in any group, going by the average statistics, the people who are trainable, who are adaptable to the life of services, and there are people who are not trainable and adaptable. Well, we have to go along with them, not as a matter of choice. We carry a lot of, if I may use, without being derogatory, passengers. And being a democratic society, each one has a choice. There are a large number of soldiers, airmen, who sort of think that they're in the wrong place. And then it's very difficult for them to continue in a upward trajectory in terms of profession. So they do what best they can do, and I don't grudge them for that. They start getting other qualifications which enable them to find second career or maybe third career after they leave. But they are not leaving in a hurry. They are there for 15 years. Yes, they get a pension, but that is not the most desirable situation. I am saying this with the benefit of Agnipath scheme, which is now in the offing. And what is happening here? Why is it a unique scheme? This unique scheme is the scheme, is only scheme that provides to check on the person's trainability and adaptability. Trainability to the skill sets, the knowledge, and the attitude and the character that is required to be built in armed forces, and adaptability to the harsh and challenging ways of life. And there's a long list of the life that we have, which is full of challenges. It is not only the soldier who fights, it is a family of the soldier who supports the soldier that also fights for the nation. There's a whole lot of dynamics in the family too. So I'm talking about the adaptability to that extent. And it's not easy to get such people. Once again, I don't grudge those who are unable to adapt to the way of life. My only complaint is that they're not leaving and making space for others to come for the lure of pension. Now, what were you doing with this if the scheme was so bad? There were good points of that scheme too. I would be a bad person if I say that our men have let us down. No, I am telling you the facts of the case where a person who gets attention gets diverted towards making another career while in service itself is bad. His 15 years for him look waste of time, but when he's out, he's not really finding a very suitable employment outside for the reason that he is well past his employable age. While I say this, you must also see how this is taken care in the scheme, Agnipath scheme. The Agnipath schemes takes these boys and perhaps girls too in at an age where they are moldable, they cannot be that trainable, and then on a fast track they are trained, and then they are used in the service in a manner, employed in the service in a manner that those who have the trainability and adaptability for higher tasks, higher weapon systems, and a longer commitment with the attitude which General Kandare talked about, the aptitude, the attitude, the character, and the caliber to take the service forward, take the career forward, and take the nation forward. This kind of unique ability is not there in any scheme. So I would call that this methodology of recruitment seems to be more evolved, it's more logical, and it is in the interest of services and also the soldiers, the airmen, and it will meet the emerging HR challenges of the future generation IAF. Now, what are the requirements to make it a success? While we said that the uniqueness of this scheme is the on-the-job assessment, the on-the-job assessment is not provided for the present system. Mind you, no government job is for life, least of all in the armed forces. Therefore, it is not it is a natural tendency to prepare oneself for second career while in the military, and we should not have any complaints. I'm making this point. I've already made this point in front of the present system. How is it win-win for both individual and the service? Now, this provides a golden opportunity for the India's youth to experience military life without having to make a long-term commitment. We always talk about the next generation is flippant, next generation this, next generation that. I would say, as a father of next generation daughters, that they are very quick in making their decision. They have their heads on the shoulder. They are ahead of their times. And we need to provide the training. They need to identify them and provide the environment for them to make their own future and of the country. Now, this period of 4 years of active service to these Agniveers will provide the much required time to resolve inhibitions of any with respect to the services, way of life, and towards deciding upon armed forces as a permanent career option. They are not stuck, nor is the service stuck with them. It provides the, let's say, Indian Air Force to select most suitable in terms of trainability and most willing in terms of adaptability, those with positive attitude from amongst a group of young Agniveers who have been closely supervised, objectively assessed for long-term engagement in the Indian Air Force. Now, this is not there in the present scheme, and it just doesn't stop here. There's a lot of demand on the services for this, the Air Force or the services for this. It also provides for a fairly significant number of well-groomed, nourished, that means physically nourished with all the nourishments and physically exercise young men re-streamed into the society, were proud of having received the military training, having a high degree of self-belief and the can-do attitude, a motivated citizen with qualities of leadership, determination, maturity, courage, orderliness, punctuality, sense of belonging, and responsibility to the society, and the evolved sense of nation and patriotism. And that's quite lacking in our educational system and in our system of education at home too. So this is the point I'd like to underline. There is going to be no dilution of standards at the entry level qualifications. In fact, the entry level selection process has to be further refined to assess the trainability and adaptability of the Agniveers who are stepping in. This definitely happens at the level of SSBs. We have to be very careful to select, to have a methodology to identify the trainability and adaptability potential at the entry level itself. Indian Air Force is a technologically intensive service, and as special skill sets are required to be inculcated at a very rapid pace to be operationally and functionally deployed on a weapon system or its support systems. Apart from other areas, the Agniveers will be sought from ITIs and NSQF, which is the National Skills Qualification Framework, and NCC units, so that they are already at a higher level of a takeoff point when join the armed forces or the Air Force, if I may say. That means we already have a higher level potential intake who need to be further taken up at a fast but effective pace into the armed forces. So don't have to worry about whether it is 4 years and it takes 6 years to train a person. We have to turn many things on their head, and I'll address them one by one. So one is about the selection itself, that we pick up the most adaptable, most trainable that we can assess scientifically, and DIPR has instruments to check that, besides the physical and the intelligent quotient and other things. Then the Indian Air Force is going to take these Agniveers on the training trajectory, which will be specially tailor-made training curricula with effective teaching and training methodologies and assessments, so that their transit through the training stage is effective and quick. So there is a need to also revolutionize your training. Obviously, there is a need to revolutionize your trainers. So there's a lot of tasks ahead of the services to make this scheme work. And I'm sure they're working towards that at fast pace. Further, the 4 year plus Agniveers would take lesser time to adapt to more sophisticated weapons and support systems. I'm talking about those who are going to voluntarily stay back in the armed forces. You can imagine the rapid upscaling that is going to happen in these 4 years in a very scientific and thought out way. And the 75% of Agniveers, who's a matter of concern, who are stream into the society, will have the financial support, as we all know, about 10 to 12 lakhs, which for a common Indian is not heard of. And also the skill sets, also the confidence, which is again lacking as we see, the self confidence, and also the youthful age profile, all put together, they are in a better position to embark upon entrepreneurship or any new career path. I'm not even understating the fact or overstating the fact they are a different people, different citizens of India when they have stepped out back into the society as part of the 75% Agniveers. They are different and they are not going to fail the country even in those roles that they will undertake. They are not rejects. They're just that they have not made the grade or they have not made the choice to continue. The role of the three services to shape this youth of India will come into prominence. What is the responsibility of armed forces? No, not just to protect, but this is a new role that we're going to shape the youth of India. Now I will just move on to the concluding part where, as I began, there's a revolution in military affairs. Firstly, in terms of selection, right from the initial selection process, better promising candidates will be recruited as Agniveers for a 4-year tenure. For this, the feeder institutes are, besides the coaching institutes also, who have to realign themselves to this new requirement of selection. Once again, coaching and training institutes are there and they will be there. And there is no reason for anyone to complain against them. But they better at the moment align themselves and see the reality in life and put this agitating youth back onto the track and get them selected in the upcoming recruitment rallies that are going to happen. So the other institutes are going to be ITIs, the NSQFs, which are already in the being. So my agreees who are going to join in are at a different type of point than their predecessors. So with ample attributes of trainability and adaptability, quotient along with intelligence and physical benchmarks, these agnivees will be at a higher level of takeoff point and they will be very easy and quick and effective way to be trained. And obviously, the methodology of selection would be modified to meet this requirement. Once in training, these agnivees will have a high potential of trainability and will undergo the education training programs, which is such that it is redesigned to be concentrated yet effective, thereby reducing the training duration to 1 to 1.5 years without compromising on the quality. And this is the task for the trainers. Training the trainers will be an important aspect in this where newer pedagogies and techniques would have to be adopted to impart a revised training curriculum, ensuring adequate physical nourishment, rest, as also recuperation. You can't tire them out. They're all human beings. And at this stage, their mental, their physical, and their moral development is taking place. We have a very delicate, as also very important and very crucial resource at hand to be developed into fighting men and women. And this needs to be scientifically done. The trainer and supervisors have to be taught to supervise and observe these agnivees and assess them under objective criteria which are standardized, which are measurable, which are unbiased, and they also need to be recorded and kept up to date with multiple oversights. And these assessments have to be fair and with various scientific criteria that needs to be outlined. And these will form the part of making the overall assessment of those 25%, those who volunteer to be retained back. At the discharge stage, those of Agniveers who choose to stay out or they don't make the grade in a manner of a competitiveness, There is enough financial backup, the physical, mental, moral take place, and there is an enabling healthy environment that they have spent their time through. All of that they don't have to leave behind. They take it home and take it for life. The sense of discipline, the sense of belongingness to organization, the society, their own recognition in the society as a Agnivi, that title they will carry till for life. Competitive spirit that they have learnt, esprit de corps, the feeling for each other that will permeate into our society, the sense of self-belief, and evolved sense of patriotism, the leadership, followership, and the can-do attitude. So all in all, let this Agnipath scheme roll out, and you will see the difference in our lifetimes. We are moving into different armed forces. We're moving into a different India. Jai Hind. Hello.
Yeah. Am I audible, sir?
Yeah.
Sorry, sir. I missed the last part. I mean, there's a connection thing.
Where did you lose me? Am I not on the group?
Hello,
You
Manishi.
are.
So we
Yeah.
heard everything what you said. We heard
Yeah.
everything.
All right.
Great, sir. Yeah, that's fine. Oh, I just missed for some seconds.
Okay, no
So
issue.
thank you, Bhosle sir,
What you missed
again
was
for
Jai Hind.
a very precise, yeah, for a very precise presentation address, and I think the most important part, obviously, was you rightly characterized that this is really a revolution in military affairs, but in the domain of HR. I think that's a very important point which we all have to understand, and how Agniveer, in fact, is really a challenge. The Agnipath scheme is actually a challenge and an opportunity. And you really beautifully brought out how the Air Force itself has how it is looking and how your experiences are in fact really suggesting that the Agnipath scheme is in fact putting Agnipath scheme in fact in a very proper perspective. Also the question of trainability and adaptability, how what sort of rapid upscaling this would really involve. And I think two very important conclusions which you pointed out, sir, which are of utmost relevance, that ultimately armed forces are also playing via this a very important role in shaping the youth of India, number one. And number two, the societal implications, not many in fact are talking about it, that once the Agniveers are after 4 years, what is it that they'll be bringing back to the society. And I think that's a very important point, that's a very important, and in fact one needs to underline that what sort of values these Agniveers are going to be bringing to the table after 4 years. And also, and I think one of the very important things which Bhosle sir has flagged for us is also that the trainers of Agniveers, how in fact they should also be scientifically trained. I think that's a very important point. So thank you again, sir, for this.
Welcome.
Invite Major General Chaturvedi to address us. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Manish, Dr. Manish, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Uh, I think we overshot the time limit, which I had checked from the host. So I am promising myself 10 minutes and no more. And if I am within this time limit, I also promise you to tell you a small anecdote, which is related to the age and the youth profile. I start by telling you the numerical strength of various armies or the armed forces in the world. The leading nation is China. We are second. US is third, and fourth is Russia, and fifth, surprisingly, is North Korea, and sixth is Pakistan. And then, of course, there's Iran and Indonesia, and so on and so forth. There's no European nation. I'll come to this numerical strength shortly. I take you now to say World War One, which was essentially a trench warfare, which was fought from the trenches. Of course, there was the Air Force and Navy fighting across, but in terms of numerical strength, it was all people fighting from the trenches. And at that time, the British Indian Army also was of great strength. It was almost about 10 lakhs large at one point of time, probably 1916, 1917. And then, and who were the main actors? The main overall, it was all Europe centric. You could Germany, Italy, England, France. The USA came in Second World War later, and of course Japan and from the East Asian country. China was no. India, of course, was part of British India. So we were playing a very important role, but not as an independent nation. Now, cut to Second World War, we had the technological change coming in. There was the tank came in, and also the Air Force, there was a lot of changes. Similarly, with the Navy. So the technology made a lot of difference, and across the ages of warfare, technology has made most of the difference most of the time. So now I come back to this numerical strength. Now the world of geopolitics has changed. If you see for yourself, we have India as a regional power, and so is China. China is now vying to be the number one superpower in the world. It's trying unabashedly for that. And we have China as a neighbor, and then we have Pakistan, which is a self-confessed expansionist nation. So why I'm again coming back to this, because we can't choose our neighbors. We can't redefine geography. So we have to contend with these two nations, while we are again not a self-confessed expansionist country. They both are, and they both have are enemies, if you can say so. And therefore, the numerical strength will need to remain, while we all talk in terms of lean and mean armed forces. We will have to have those, the numerical strength to fight them. As we have seen in the latest is the Galwan, and before that, the insurgency situation in our northern state of J&K, and the various activities that one has carried out there. So if you can't wish away the numerical strength, and we have to build on to the technology, because without that, we are just sitting ducks. And the example we can see in the recent Russia-Ukraine war that is on. So now that requires money, and where do we get the money from? And as brought out, the Subramaniam Committee had recommended this much earlier, and we were always, wondering why we can't get into, this modernization, this change. So basically, change is resisted by the people who are the decision makers, who feel have a stake in the present dispensation. And the people who there are some people who are pushing for change. So these two forces collide, and then whichever force finally wins, then it can affect change. So in the current thing now, finally the reports of the early 2000 is now coming, is now fructifying. like the CDS. It was, to a normal bystander, it would sound so, I would say stupid, but it would sound so funny that, there was an organization, the Integrated Defense Staff, which did not have a CDS. And, everyone had each service had his own view. And so did the bureaucracy, and so did the political dispensation. So now these changes, as brought out, have been put into effect, and these are not off the cuff. These have been recommended by the study groups, and have been debated, deliberated about. Now, having come to that, what I want to further explain is that in the armed forces, the details are worked out very well. I mean, everyone knows that we take pride in being extremely professional in whatever one does. So the training aspect, the adaptability aspect, all that which people are obviously raising questions about, are essentially because of the change that is occurring. Because the people asking these questions have not seen this. Because they believe in what they underwent was the right thing. You can't blame them. Like, if I have undergone something, I see the world in that manner, and I feel that is the only way. But we look at other nations. We see Israel is one model, US is one model, where even a West Point graduate can leave after 3 years, and they are given avenues. They are given admissions into various universities, on a priority basis. So there are various systems which have evolved to suit their requirement. This is, in our case, this is the most optimal model is this, where we have the Agniveers coming in, or Agniveers, and then by a process of selection, the best only stay. And let me confirm this, what General Khandare said, that the armed forces are not a very good organization. That we call it the Eiffel Tower. It's not pyramid. The organization is not pyramidal. It is Eiffel Tower like. Whereas 0.08% reach a general's rank. And mind you, people are coming from after due selection, and it is not easy. Like the NG examination, or the IMA, or the various examinations, and then you are trained across over the years, and you're competing with the best of the best, and then you get left behind. So, it is not a very a good organization that way. What I would like to bring out here is, not all is hunky dory. We need to explain in detail what is the scheme about, and also to assuage the fears. You see, it is not a guaranteed employment, and we should not look at it that way. We should in fact leverage it, like these 4 years of training. Again, as what I think General Khandare mentioned it in the passing, that we should apply that one nation security theory here. Constitutionally, we are a federal in structure, but unitary in spirit. Similarly, the security could be federal in structure. The state look after their respective police forces, but it could be unitary in spirit in terms of taking these Agniveers into various police forces, various CAPFs, and various. I'll come to the other organizations first. I'll deal with these forces. So, what are they getting? They're getting well-trained, over the 4 years, experienced soldiers with a little, a 3-month capsule. They can be onboarded in their respective organizations. They don't need to go through the same process again. So this is what one, holistic security structure would come out to be. And then there will be a commonality amongst all these guys. So see the synergy that will take place amongst the various security stakeholders across the nation. And we know for sure that the security today is beyond just conventional war. Terrorism is is facing us all the while. So the police force, the CAPF, all and the armed forces, they will need to work in sync. Here, I take it on further that various the PSUs, they already come forward, and they would again with a little bit of training. Various ministries, need to actually work out along with the three services, the modalities of how to take them in. This would assuage the fear in the minds of people that after 4 years they'll be left high and dry. That is what I want to say, because we can't wish away. There is some doubts. Yes, we need to address it, because there's nothing to hide. We need to work towards that, and this will happen, I'm sure. As I said, armed forces are very good at working on these details, and once they put their mind to it, they will be able to do it to the T. But in the same breath, in the same vein, I want to add another venue which which people are not yet seeing. I feel that the idea of private military companies, the contractor, the so-called contractors, has come in. The US and the other Western nations are using it because they have found it economically and professionally both very sound. They don't need to maintain that the standing army or armed forces in that manner. All the logistics, all the repair facilities, all the peacetime routine activities could be given to these private military companies. And I for sure know that there are, I believe Mr. Mahindra has come up already with a statement, and I for sure know an industrialist group and an entrepreneur who are willing to come forward and create such military companies, and they will work in sync with the armed forces. So there will be a change, because we generally view the private sector with a jaundiced eye, but those days are long gone. We need to understand that point. From a socialist economy, we have moved to a capitalist socialist economy, and we need to understand that the so-called socialism takes us nowhere. It makes us uniformly poorer, except for an elite, say like in North Korea, for example, or China, for example, that way, or Russia, for example. So here we would need to work with the private sector also in that manner. And the last point I want to bring out is that I'm sure in due course we'll come out of this the thought of Naukri. The general thought process is that everyone looks for I should get a government Naukri so that I've got I can then look after my family, that my pension is secure. The entrepreneurial spirit, the human enterprise, like say in the states of Gujarat or Maharashtra, it will finally need to take over. It will take over because Indians are, very enterprising by nature, and now the system is encouraging it. Previously, the system was not encouraging. The socialistic structure was putting the enterprise down. So now this entrepreneurial spirit will come about. Let me just check the time. I think I overshot my time by about 5-7 minutes. So okay, I'll quickly tell you about this little anecdote. While serving in the insurgency area of J&K, we were leading an operation. I was the second in command. I must have been about late 30s, and I was moving with the Ghatak platoon. That's the commando platoon, and we were going for a raid on the terrorist hideout. And we moved in a very dark night, very dark night, and we very successfully reached where they were. And it is all jungle and mountains, so you really didn't know. And suddenly we heard a person coughing. Early morning. It was about 5:30, and he was coughing, and suddenly we realized, okay, these guys are there. And before I could tell the platoon to move to that location, they moved like raindrops on a window pane. And I thought that I was also, as fit, but I found myself tumbling down. And by the time I reached that location, those guys had already fixed their LNGs and started firing onto the terrace. So that is the time I realized that, one, I had grown old, and two, you cannot beat youth. And as you can see in various cricketing stars, that you lose the sense of timing, you lose the eye hand coordination. So however much you try, the youth is required, and that is what this scheme is aiming at. So we should support this scheme, and also clear the doubts that have arisen. Thank you very much. I think I bored you a little bit, but never mind. Jai Hind and Jai Hind Ki Sena.
Thank you, Major General Saab, for that. Again, like the previous presentations, made very crisp, sharp points. You began obviously with giving mapping for us the historical overview, taking back to, in fact, the world wars, and how what sort of technological and geopolitical changes we have been seeing all these years in decades, and also the current state of security challenges at our own borders. Very important point about, and in fact, underlining what Lieutenant General Khandari also mentioned about the whole of nation approach, also the holistic security structure. And I think two very important points again about where I think the imagination of the government should also be really in a way fixated, is also about private military companies. I think that is one area we should be looking at, and also we all, in a sense, are forgetting that the entrepreneurial spirit of Indians needs to be really tapped, and in that sense, we should be less apprehensive about what needs to be, what sort of things we would expect after 4 years from Agniveers. So thank you all again for those wonderful and really, I mean, enlightening address. And I think all of us are really going to carry with us really food for rich food for thought. But let me bring in a couple of and very quickly some questions which have come to me directly on Twitter and even on my social media about this, about and again also looking at some of the critiques which have come since last couple of days. And I'll just mention a couple of them, and maybe each one of you could very briefly answer them. The one thing which, in fact, many have also pointed out, that this whole in the army, especially in the army, you have this different regiments which really talk about Naam, Namak, Nishan. We are now moving in in the Agnipath scheme to an all India basis. So how will that play out? That's one of the very important questions. I mean, some of the questions have come on that. The second thing is, what about the state quotas? Now that would that stay in the Agnipath scheme? Wouldn't that lead to some sort of a regional imbalance? That is one set of questions which I've got. The other thing, which is also in terms of the process of putting out or coming out with this very important radical reform, transformative reform, no doubt. But was there some pilot project basis? If this could have been done, would that have been more helpful in finishing the Agnipath scheme? I think that is one set of questions which I've been getting. So let me stop here and then request each of you to very briefly respond and any of you can really start.
Okay, Manish, I will take on my opinion on this. Firstly, the issue about regiments, Naam Namak Nishan. In the Indian Army, we have, especially infantry, armored artillery, or mechanized infantry, we have class compositions. Like General Chaturvedi and me, we come from regiments which have pure class composition. Like I come from Garhwal Rifles, he comes from Gurkha Rifles. But at the same time, let me tell you, there are other regiments which have mixed class composition, all India class composition, like the Guards Regiment is one. Then we have Mahar Regiment. When we say Naam Namak Nishan, that stays. Whatever be the class composition, that does not get compromised. Take an example. I will tell you, when I was a very junior officer, I had served in a very difficult area in the, say, Pithoragarh Hills and beyond. And there we had 18 Mahar with us, a battalion where right down to the section level, there was all India class composition. And let me assure you, in no way was that battalion inferior to anybody. Same is the case with our signal regiments, our engineer regiments. They have mixed composition. A large number of mechanized infantry units also have had mixed compositions. 1984, we went in for mixing of these class composition, but we did that at company level. So if a battalion has 4 rifle companies, so we went in like 13 Sikh. I'll give you an example. It had one company of Sikh, one Dogras, one Gadwalis, and one Madrasis. That continued for a large number of years, and thereafter it again went out because these battalions were standing out alone. The entire process had not been followed up. Now that we have been told that we will go in for all India class composition, I do not think that the names of the regiments are going to change, but the composition will change, and the people adapt themselves to these regiments. And that is the beauty of the armed forces. You look at officers, wherever the soldiers may be from, but the officers are from all India class composition. I am from Maharashtra, but I have lived more with Gadwalis than I have lived with my relatives. So that kind of an adaptation is extremely good in the armed forces. So I want to assure everyone that nothing is going to go wrong. A point about state quotas. There is nothing like state quotas. There is a scientific study which is done in which every state or every region is mapped out for recruitable male population. That is called the RMP. And in that recruitable male population, it is worked out as to which area can contribute how much. And that is how it is taken into infantry, armored, everywhere. You name it, and people are then distributed as per the vacancies that come up. In a manner, now, the moment you open it up for all India class composition from all over the country, you will get the best people. And there may be certain adjustments which we may have to do. For example, in the scouts are people who are sons of soil concept. So maybe that part will have to be looked at differently. The other issue, or the last issue, about pilot project. Remember, armed forces don't do pilot projects. They don't do lab tests. We go in for something and we achieve it. When we raised Rashtriya Rifles, we didn't do one battalion raising. We didn't do a kind of put your finger and how hot is it and how cold is it. That's not the way it works. We go over a study deliberately, we make an action plan, and we go in for it. I think this is the difference when you look at people putting their life at stake. You don't say that I'll put my small finger outside and see if somebody shoots that, and then I may decide how to go. No, that's not the way armed forces function.
Great, sir. I think these were perfect responses. So, Major General Chaturvedi, would you like to add?
Yeah, I'll add a little bit here because Khandare covered it very, very well. It is again resistance to change. After all, what is the regimental system? It's a system given to us by the Britishers. They made it post 1857 broadly, where the people who supported them or who did not fight against them, they turned them into martial races and other non-martial races, and and that's how the regimental system was born. But yes, it became a very effective system where people were from the same area, and they had the same ethnicity and the same culture. So there were a lot of strong points. And now then modern India came into being, and we have seen that every Indian has some or the other specialty, a good quality. So my take is that while I'm from Gurkha Rifles, so I'll continue to bat for Gurkha Rifles. Yes, they're the best troops in the world. But again, give you an example. We had 17 Rajput with us when I was a young officer, and we were in Punch at that point of time, and then we were having a boxing competition, and we were and 17 Rajput mixed battalion at that point of time. It still is, I believe. So, and we are supposed to be very good at boxing. The Gurkhas are very good at boxing. So, we are cocksure of winning the competition. And in walked, I think, a Bengali guy, and he started fighting the Gurkha. And while we were very sure we are cheering up the Gurkha, but this Bengali guy just won't stop. He won't stop throwing punches. And for those 9 minutes, he kept on boxing, and our guy lost. So I learned this lesson, which I didn't obviously voice, so clearly, that if you have an all India, all class, you get all these specialties together. You see, why a Garhwali, a Gurkha, a Jat, they'll be good in some things, but not all things. And if you have an all India, all class mix, then all those good things will come together. And what just adding on to what General Khandare said, that this will it will not be an issue which we as the veteran community is looking at. It is a new thing. That is why we are finding it a little difficult. But it is already prevalent in the services, in the support arms, and also in some infantry units. So I think this would work. This is not a problem.
Thank you, sir. We were wanting Marshal Bhoslet also to speak, I mean to respond, but there is some audio issue at his end. So maybe uh, okay, I don't think he can hear us. Okay, so let me profusely thank each one of you, and we really, in fact, the discussions, the points were made so effectively, so brilliantly, and as was expected from armed forces, very sharp, clear take on Agnipath scheme, and I think I completely endorse, especially what Major General Chaturvedi Saab has been saying, that it also in that sense our responsibility that to really assuage concerns and apprehensions which have come out. It is the job of, and I'm sure, and that is what we are also witnessing on a day-to-day basis. And in fact, today's program, today's session was exactly to really, as I said at the outset itself, to clear the fog of, in some way, that okay, this is what exactly the scheme is all about. And let's and in fact, let's also not forget that there is a industry of sorts in every part of the world, which really questions the intent, questions the process, questions the outcomes. I mean, at some level, I'm aghast to see that 4 साल के बाद ये निकलेंगे, तो I mean, they would be fully trained, they would be fully motivated. So, I mean, as if they are going to create some havoc on the Indian society. I mean, what sort of mindset are you coming with? Also, is a big question, a big. I mean, but again, I mean, this is what life is all about. And but I think we really had a great session. Just, I mean, in fact, Ajit Bhosle sir has joined us back. So if you can just put in, come in.
Yeah, Manish, just two quick points I want to add before. Sorry, if you permit me,
Yes, sir.
Marshal Bhosle, sir, if you permit me. One about this, having, why did we go in for a little test case kind of a thing before implementing the scheme? So this is a total re-engineering case. This model is a total re-engineering model. So the pain is felt more. You see, there's a gradual change. You can get gradual change in slowly, and then the impact is not felt as much. But in a total re-engineering case, yes, the pain is felt, but then it is a total re-engineering. The whole thing changes. So this again needs to be understood and explained accordingly. That this is what has happened. It could have gone on. It would have gone on for 2 years. You're testing it out, and then someone would have come up with some wise points. It can't be put in. So it would be ad infinitum. It has already taken about 20 years. To see the daylight. I mean, it is actually too much, and it is the resistors to change who have been successful till now. So this is what I
That's
wanted to put across.
absolutely, so that, I think that's a very valid point, well taken. So the last word to Air Marshal Bhosle sir, if you can, if his, yeah, I think we can hear him now.
Yeah, I know I have somehow got technologically challenged again. And in my speech, I talked about we are Air Force is technologically, intensive and all that. Somehow these two things don't go together. That's what has happened today. Yeah, but I could, benefit from major part of General Chaturvedi's discourse, and it's a need of the hour, and that has not come too early, too late, and it's a challenge and opportunity. There's no going back from that, and it will only the people have to kind of have patience and see the positives of it. At the moment, whatever disturbances or
Right,
anything
sir.
that we see are the the immediate pains people are facing. Like it is famously said that Plato, beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder. Whether it is good or the bad, it is the mind of the people who have been pent up because they've been selected, they're waiting. Now they say there is new thing thrown at them, it's not for show. All these things will settle down, and Agnipath is going to be a roaring success. I have no doubts about that. It's not only the armed forces that are going to benefit out of it, it's the society which is going to benefit from it. And it is the other services which will be inducting these Agniveers. They'll be benefiting from this. So we have to have faith in the system and we have to work for it. This is not going to happen. I try to highlight that at the selection stage itself and thereafter in the training, we have golden opportunity, the rare opportunity which was never there, that we are observing and we are kind of, we are crafting these people who are going to be there for a permanent commitment. It was never there. And I mean, like General Kandari gave his own example. That is how it is. So there are filters at various levels, and what finally comes out is what we want, what the nation needs. So the disturbances in the streets, a matter of worry for everybody. The youth has to get back, head for the recruiting centers, and the army and the air force and the navy will embrace them, will take them, and they will build into a new family called the armed forces. And the mindset will change. World will be different for them. And I have no doubts. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir, and let me thank you all again for joining us and really taking time out to really participate in this very, in a way, very. It seems like a very polarized debate, but putting out facts, putting out history, putting out, and I think very importantly, each one of you really brought your own very rich and diverse experiences to the table to today's session. So thank you, and I really want to thank all the participants who have joined here and also on our YouTube channel. So it's great that we could have this conversation today, and many more would follow on this and contemporary themes, which I think the whole idea about the Indian futures is really to have a just very honest, I mean, जो भारतीय परंपरा है about the संवाद, I think that is the real core of what we are trying to achieve here. Unfortunately, because of the paucity of time, we couldn't have. I mean, otherwise, usually we have the participants themselves to pose questions to distinguished speakers. But because of paucity of time, I asked them to message me directly in the Zoom chat box and even on my own phone. So I just compiled them and put it out to you. So equally, I mean, brilliant addresses and brilliant responses to those queries also. So thank you very much. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.
Thank you, Manish ji. Thank you.